Alright, this is a set of quick computer updates, hopefully a quick video. I'm so optimistic that'll be quick. In fact, I'm filming this on the Canon PowerShot SX130, although it's only in standard definition. But the last computer updates I made were back in August. Those were the first 5 videos on my channel. And I want to get some updates through before there are too many to keep count of. So without further ado, we'll start right off. First off, you know that my friend David bought the Acer Aspire 3050. He is enjoying it. Second, a friend of mine had given me another laptop, as you might know of. That laptop died. It died on Christmas Eve. It suffered a motherboard failure. It will never work again. I've already thrown the motherboard. I thought that a new power board might fix the problem, but that wasn't it. I still have the laptop. I still have most of the parts with it. I'm hoping to sell some of the parts. I'll make a full video of that laptop soon. Next, the Dell Inspiron 1525. It now has a 160 gigabyte hard drive. The original was 120 gigabyte. The 160 gig hard drive I had bought for the other Dell laptop that I was given that died on Christmas Eve. So I stuck that laptop in here, or stuck that hard drive, excuse me, in this laptop instead. That hard drive was 40 bucks. It works very well. It's much faster. The Windows Experience Index went from 5.1 for the original hard drive to 5.9 for this hard drive. Also, the Dell now has a brand new battery, an extended battery. Look how it sticks out. You might remember this thing for the last couple years has been tethered to the wall outlet because the original battery had gone bad. It only got around 20 minutes of life, and even before it died, it just spontaneously shut off. I bought this battery for Christmas with some money from relatives. It cost me about $50. $50 for this, it's a generic brand Chinese battery from eBay, and it works wonderfully. If I try really hard, I can get 6 hours of life out of it. If I don't try hard, I keep the screen brightness up, the Wi-Fi on, I can still get 3 or 4 hours. It is beautiful, and what a great deal for, I believe, $50. Maybe it was $30, I forget, but yes, wonderful, wonderful deal on that. So this thing is now working great. The only thing is, we now have a crack. I've been told this is a common problem. The hinge cracks, the hinge cover cracks right here. Doesn't hurt anything functionally, it just looks kind of crappy. But yeah, so there's this laptop. Alright, next, the Compaq Presario 5360. Pardon the mess, but this thing now has a PCI Wi-Fi card. If we look in behind it, you can see an antenna there. It's a D-Link DWL G510. A friend of mine sold it to me for 10 bucks. It's an 80211G card, and it works okay. Sometimes I'm transferring large amounts of data, and it decides to freeze. The whole computer just does a hard freeze up, and not only does the computer freeze up, it kills the router as well, and the whole network goes down until I shut this thing off. But usually it works pretty well. It might not even be the card itself. It just might be the SIS 530 chipset, God knows. But the Travan drive that was in here, never got it working, so it's out, and in its place is a hard drive. So this thing now has 3 hard drives in it, the main one with Windows 2000, and 2 hard drives here that I use to store data over the network. I got a metric buttload of hard drives from school that I'll make a video of them all someday. But anyway, there is the Compaq with its new 80211G Wi-Fi card, PCI. The Acer Travelmate 233LC. You remember this thing had 256 megs of RAM, which I said I was going to upgrade, and I also said I was going to buy a Wi-Fi card for it. Both of those things have been fulfilled. This thing now has a full 1 gigabyte of RAM, the most RAM it can take. This thing runs beautifully. Also, I bought a Wi-Fi card for it. I paid $1 for it. Came from China. And that card only worked a month. It only worked about a month, and it just completely died. And upon opening up the card, I found rust inside it. The card had suffered water damage, and they used a picture of a good card. I feel like I've said this before, like on a different update video. I think maybe on that video of the first snow of the season, but anyhow, yeah, that card had rust inside it. It had suffered water damage, and they sold it anyway as a perfectly fine card using a fake picture and all. So good thing I only paid $1 for it. So I got this card. This is a D-Link DWL G650. The original card was a Linksys WPC 100 or something like that, but anyway, I got this card from school. My computer teacher gave it to me in return for videotaping a hockey game, a girls' hockey game, which was pretty cool in itself that I got to tape that. But he gave me this card for free. There's about a dozen or so of them lying around the computer lab in a bunch of ThinkPads and everything, but I just kinda decided to be mean to the label there. Wish I hadn't done that now, but whatever. This card works beautifully. I've had it for a few months now, and it's been working great. Definitely a lot better than that Cisco card. So that's pretty awesome, and it works well. It's also a G card. We have a G Wi-Fi network, so it's all suitable. So yeah, working beautifully. There is the Travelmate. I will say the battery doesn't last as long as it did back in August. Back in August I could get about an hour and a half out of the battery. Now I'm lucky if I get around 40 or 50 minutes, but other than that, this thing is working great. Next, the Compaq Deskpro EN. It now has my 40 GB Maxtor Diamond Max Plus 8 hard drive in it. You might remember the original hard drive was a 20 GB Maxtor Diamond Max of some sort. That drive is now in the Presario. I'm using it to store data over the network. This is one of those slim drives that Maxtor made from the early 2000s to the late 2000s until they were bought by Seagate. I adore these drives. Really love them. They're fast, they're quiet, and they're pretty reliable because they're so simple. One platter, one head. So anyway, this is an ATA 133 drive, even though the computer only supports ATA 100 speeds, but whatever. Also, the Deskpro now has a new power supply. What happened to the original power supply? Well, I still have it and it still functions perfectly. However, one of the Molex connectors, the one for the hard drive, the wires in it became loose, and it got so bad that you know, it just wasn't reliable anymore. The hard drive would just spontaneously shut off while I was working, and I didn't want that. So there's a ton of these Deskpro power supplies lying around the computer lab, more power supplies than there are Deskpros. So I brought another one home. I switched the fan on it with the fan on the original, because the original has the better fan, so it has the fan from the original. This power supply works well, although I think I'm starting to see signs of the same problem happening, but hopefully it doesn't happen. If it does, instead of replacing it again, I'm just going to do a redneck fix and splice a new Molex connector right on it, solder it on, and I bought some heat shrink tubing, so I'll be able to do it the right way, not the redneck way. Now, I have some awesome plans for the Deskpro's original power supply. Since it still works perfect, it just has a bad Molex connector. I'm thinking of turning it into a lab power supply, and I've already done some experiments running stuff off it just from the bare wires. I cut the Molex off, and it seems to work well, so I've bought a couple of things that I think is going to make it one cool power supply, and I read online and found out what all the different wires on it mean, and anyway, I'm going to make a whole video about that. So there is the Deskpro. I've been using with the Deskpro this Logitech wireless USB mouse that a friend of mine gave me for free. Very nice mouse. The model number, get in the light here. Well, there's all the information. The model's probably somewhere. You can turn it on and off, unlike my other wireless mouse. So, that's pretty cool. Works well. I ain't gonna bother digging out the Epson, but I do have an update on that. YouTube user VWestlife suggested that it was perhaps an IRQ conflict that the hard drive controller was having. And in the end, I have determined, I believe the hard drive controller is in fact conflicting with the VGA card that I put in that. The only thing is, I've tried, you can't set the IRQ on the VGA card, you can on the hard drive controller, and I've tried just about every setting imaginable on both the VGA card and the hard drive controller, and I cannot evade that memory parity error when you write large files to it or try to open a big program. Really sucks, and I've kind of neglected the Epson. I haven't touched it in a long time, but there's the Epson. Now, last but certainly not least, the iMac. This thing has been working so wonderfully. I love using it. It's so cool, and it's been working just great. I upgraded the RAM first. Well, you remember I upgraded it from 256 megabytes to 512 megabytes by stealing 256 megs out of the Deskpro. Well, the Deskpro now has all 512 megs back in it, and this thing now has 768 megabytes of RAM. I found a 512 megabyte stick at school. I traded it for 512 megabytes of DDR RAM I had that was useless to me, the RAM from the custom built computer. So the Deskpro now has 512 megs back in it, and this has 768 megs. Very, very cool. And that's really all I've done to this thing so far, hardware-wise. I made Mac OS 10.4 the sole operating system on it, but I didn't know. I thought Classic could work without Mac OS 9 installed. I thought Classic was built into Mac OS 10, but I guess you actually do need Mac OS 9 installed. So I'm going to redo the hard drive, just reformat it, put Mac OS 9 and Mac OS 10 back on it in dual boot configuration as I had it before. Now, you remember me saying in a video that it kind of surprised me, you know, I mean not literally because it's kind of obvious, but it just seemed weird that this thing had hard drive noise, because I always imagined Macs to be these perfect computers that didn't make any noise or didn't have any problems or anything, but Macs are computers too, and this thing has a Maxtor D540X hard drive in it. I learned the actual model of the drive instead of the model number. It's a Maxtor D540X. It's your run-of-the-mill 3.5-inch hard drive, 40 gigabytes ATA 100, and it does have wearing bearings, so it makes some noise, very audible noise. So I'm thinking, oh, the thing about Macs being silent, why don't I actually make that happen? So I'm thinking of trading the hard drive in this with that silent Maxtor Diamond Max Plus 8 in the Deskpro. And another reason I'm doing that is because I didn't mention this a couple of minutes ago, but the Deskpro itself actually needs to have Windows reinstalled. I ran a program called KillDisk to erase a old hard drive I got from school, and I told KillDisk to specifically erase that hard drive, but it decided instead to erase the Windows 98 partition on this drive, and it just busted the master boot record, and it won't boot at all. I've tried my Windows XP CD, and it won't. Fix boot, fix MBR in the console, they don't do anything. So I've already saved my important crap off this, and I'm gonna completely redo it over, reinstall Windows 98, reinstall Windows XP. So what I'm thinking is trading this drive with this drive and have the silent, smaller, quieter, faster hard drive in this. And I really don't care if this thing has the slower, bigger, noisier hard drive. I don't care. So I think I'm going to do that. And I've also bought a new pram battery for this. So when that comes, when I go to take this thing apart to install the pram battery, I'll change the hard drives up as well, and I'll film it, because these things aren't particularly easy to get inside, so I want to document it. So yeah, there's the iMac, and there's the updates for all the computers.